Hello, welcome to the video. We're going to be talking about the simple payback method. All right. So this is nothing more than a way to determine value in some major purchases. That's a simple way to say it. All right. So let's take a look at this. Okay. So why do we even consider this? So there's some things that we want to look at, and that is um, only 25% of a building's lifetime cost is in the construction or purchase. The remaining 75% lifetime costs are from maintaining the building. All right. Now that ratio holds true, or there is a ratio that can be applied to other types of purchases as well. It might not be 25-75, but there is a ratio between um, initial cost and operational cost and anything we do. All right. So when we're deciding for between bids for upgrades, replacements, repairs, and certainly large purchases, we want to take those things into consideration. A simple method to do this, that ratio into consideration, simple method is called the simple payback method. All right. So the simple payback is when deciding on operations, the options available for a project or a piece of equipment, a manager cannot forget about maintenance. All right. You can sit there and look and see one bid for the initial cost, which is labor and materials. One bid is significantly more than the other. So sometimes people just get so sticker shock, they will look at a $10,000 bid versus a $4,000 bid, and they'll go to the 4,000 immediately, right? And that's actually, even people who know this will tend to want to do that. But you have to take everything into consideration. First, that you want to make sure that you're comparing apples to apples. So first thing you look at, even before you do the payback, is you want to look at that bid to make sure that it is a real bid. What do I mean by that? Sometimes when people bid and they know that they're cheaper in one aspect, but not overall, they will really push that one aspect. So the material cost is cheaper on this one, but the labor is higher. All right. So you want to make sure that you're considering labor and materials and anything else for the startup cost, agreements, fees, whatever. All right. So everything turnkey. I sign on the line that is dotted. I pay money. I get the thing done. It's ready to go. How much money from that point to that point? How much money I got to spend? That's your initial cost, or what the book calls your first cost. All right, but then we can look at the operational cost. Some things are more expensive to run than others. This option, because it's older technology, it's cheaper. It's older technology costs a lot more to operate. Maintenance costs, other fees, energy costs, whatever. Right, so it's more expensive. So you want to look at that as well. So now I got the two bids and I said, wow, this one's $4,000 more. And then I look at the other one and said, wow, this is triple the annual cost. So I'm going to go with the more expensive one. Do you? Well, you can't just make the decision on either one of those by themselves. You have to compare them and you have to create some kind of benchmark. That's not a good word because that can be used in other things, but some kind of a piece of data that we can use as our comparison point. All right. Or our decision-making point, if you will. All right. So this method is called the simple payback. It identifies the difference between the initial cost of the more expensive option and divides it by the yearly maintenance cost of the yearly maintenance and operational cost savings. And that's going to give you a number in years that it will take for the more expensive option to work itself out to kind of be at equal, where the savings that you made if you bought the cheaper one would actually equal out. All right. You get what I'm saying. All right. So now we got to look at this. Let's look at this in a formula. Let's look at that formula. And let's give this ourselves an example. So we're replacing a 25-year-old pool filtration system. That's hard for me to say. Pool filtration system. All right, so we're replacing one that's 25 years old. It's about time it gets replaced, right? It's breaking down. It's causing us problems. We need to get rid of it. All right, so what we're going to do is remember that formula, the initial cost difference and the yearly savings, not the initial cost divided by yearly saving or yearly cost, initial cost difference divided by yearly savings. What do I mean by that? Let's look. All right, so we have two options. We have an option one and an option two. Option one is $12,000 for our first cost, and option two is $8,000 for our first cost. That means option one is $4,000 more. All right, that's a lot of money. Some people will look at that and but boom, I'm going to option two. However, if we look at the next column, we'll see that it only costs estimated cost of $400 a year to maintain and run and operate option number one. It costs $1,200 a year to maintain and operate option number two. So if I was just look at that, I said, well, crap, that's a lot of money. So I'm going to go with option number one. However, you have to look at both. All right. But we can sit there and compare these two numbers and see where the differences are, right? The difference between the $12,000 option and the $8,000 option is $4,000. The difference between $400 and $1,200 a year is $800 a year. Okay, so each one of them has something going for it. So let's do this formula. So if we look at the top formula, the initial cost difference, that is what? Is it 12,000, 8,000? No, it's 4,000, the difference between the two. So we put in $4,000 there. We divide that by what? At $800 a year savings. Now, it's important to understand that if a more expensive option is more expensive to operate, then you don't have to do this, right? You don't have to do this at all. The more expensive one is always going to be more expensive any way you look at it, all right? But this one, it's the other way around. All right, so that we're going to do, we have $800 a year savings. So we divide 4,000 by 800. It's going to take us 5 years for that more expensive difference or the more expensive one to equal out. All right, now think about this. Not only does it equal out, like, oh, so what? I don't care how long it takes to equal out. But at that point, right, at that point, that savings that you did for the cheaper one ends. And now that becomes a cost because now when you're doing that, you're whittling down the difference between the initial cost and now we're equal. Now we're spending more money overall on the cheaper one. So if we have both of them for 20 years, we can do the difference. We can say that 15 times the 15-year difference because it takes 5 years to equal out. That's 15 years of paying $800 more, which works out to, sorry, hold on. I should have had that number. So 15 times 800. Some of you already might have done this. That's $12,000 over a lifetime. All right. So that's important to know. So when it comes to lifetime operation and initial cost, option two is $12,000 less. Okay, or option one is $12,000 less. All right, so that's what we look at. Now, I did say 20 years. Why did I say 20 years? If we look back at this right here, this is a 25-year-old pool filtration system. So we're saying, hey, we got 25 years out of this one. Maybe we'll get 25 out of the new one. But you do some research and you see that on average, the internet is telling you, and the internet doesn't lie, that you're only going to get about 20 years. You can only count on about 20 years. You were living on borrowed time with that 5 years. All right. So that's what you want to look at. Now, so what? All right. The so what is this. In this instance, I told you that $12,000 a year, $12,000 in a life cycle was going to be your saving for the more expensive initial option. All right. But that might not always be the case. Let's just say it's the same thing, but it's a different piece of equipment. Let's just say it's a piece of kitchen equipment. Say it's a what do I say? What do I want to call it? Let's say it's a flat top. Okay, flat tops. same amount of money. Well, $20,000. Let's say it's a $5,000 flat top versus a $3,000 flat top, and you do the math, and your payback is at 4.5 years, right? Or your buyback or your payback point is at 4.5 years. Now, let's just say it's at 5 years, just like the other one. All right, 5 years. That sounds good on the pool system. That sounded good. However, those of you who have ever worked in a restaurant know that how long do we get out of a flat top? Not much longer than 5 years. All right. Yeah, some places will have one at 20, 30, 40 years old. However, if you use it a lot or whatever, you can only count on 5 years out of a flat top. I remember my first restaurant I worked at, we had a piece of equipment similar to that, and it was breaking down. And I said to the chef, why don't we replace it? Because I mean, it's quite obviously 30 years old, because I was looking at the thing and it was decrepit and run down. And he starts laughing. He tells me that it was only a year old. All right. Our equipment gets beat on. All right. And let me tell you, that restaurant that I worked at, they were very good. We maintained it. We did everything we could. We did all the preventive maintenance and everything like that. Some things just get abused by being used. All right. So those are the things you want to take into consideration. All right. You want to take into consideration how long will it take for it to equal out, the difference to equal out, and how close that is to the end of its life cycle. If it's more than 75% towards the end of the life cycle, and I'm not sure that is an actual number that people say, but I would say that if it's more than 75%, say your expected life expectancy life cycle of a piece of equipment is 10 years, and my payback gives me about 9 years, that's beyond 75%. I wouldn't do it. All right. So that's the simple payback method. You will have an assignment that is basically on this. Make sure you remember all the little nuances I talked about. Have any questions? Let me know.